All right. So, as we mentioned in the introduction, we're recording with the one and only Tom Lowe again. We recorded the original conversation a few weeks ago. You'll hear that in a bit, just before you went to Tahiti, Tom. We're recording this update a couple weeks after that trip to Tahiti. First things first, it's so nice to be speaking with you and that you're still with us, Tom.
Yeah, same. I mean, yeah, I'm still processing it, to be honest, mate. Yeah, I mean, what a difference a moment can make, right? Do you know what I mean? So I don't even know really where to begin, but it's been a pretty hectic couple of weeks. Yeah, since we last spoke, it was still a 50-50 whether I was going on the swell.
Right.
And to be honest, yeah, it was kind of like it was a combination of reasons why I just decided to go for it. I was going to come here as I'd planned to do 5 weeks here with the family. Basically we'd be heading over right about now.
Mm.
That was our original plan. But then this swell popped up, things went into warp speed. YETI jumped on board and says, "Look, mate, get out there. Let's if you're feeling it, if this is what you want to do, we'll support the mission, and we'll get the family with you and make it happen." And to me, that was just a no-brainer. I was like, can we pull it off to the missus? And then since we got off the phone, it was pretty much game on. It was like, yeah, 48 hours to kind of organize the troops and okay it with the school and chuck Tiger out and all that sort of stuff, and organize all of my gear as well as the girls. I mean, it's easy enough for a surfer, to get geared up to jump on the swell. It's different when you bring in the full
Right.
team. But I was super excited and nervous, but excited. As we said on the podcast before, I was pumped, but of course I was pretty, yeah, just kind of just like any swell. The anxiety was there, but I definitely reckon this one was on another level because that accident a few years ago was the gnarliest one to date that I'd ever been through. So
Mm.
just kind of coming back here was something I'd wanted to do since the accident, but also yeah, just didn't know whether it was when it was the right time. I was overthinking it sometimes. I was just unsure, and then had board shape from Christensen, was psyching that the first summer after the accident, and then finally felt like, yeah, now's the right time. It's all kind of coming together. There's a reason it's all
Mm.
climaxed into this moment of like the team are coming, and it just felt right. I was like, well, if my fam are with me, nothing can go wrong. I'm coming in with the good energy. I'm putting in a 5 week stint. I don't have to rush to take off on any bombs and try and prove anything. I'm just going to take it as it comes. That was my attitude. It was, yeah, of course, I was preparing for, gnarly West 10 to 12 foot chopu, which is as heavy as any spot on the planet. Of course, I was gearing up to send it and get stuck in, but I was also um, putting a little bit of pressure off myself by saying, man, if it doesn't work out this well, I've got another month to 5 weeks where I can go on the next one, go on the next one. So all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was where I was kind of at mentally, I guess, which was a nice feeling. Um,
Kind of that
yeah,
balance between, eager and ready to go, but not in a situation where you're going to put yourself into a bad one just because you feel rushed.
yeah. Well, that's what we do, mate. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I travel from England or Ireland. I've done it many a time, or I'm at Nazare putting my seasons in, and then I'm just like, oh, jaws swell, October early.
Yeah.
It's going to
Right.
be 25 foot proper jaws. Oh crap! Like no warm up, just barely had any sessions, and we're just like, let's do it. And then 2 days of travel, get there, can barely put your fins on the boat because you're so jet lagged. You're pulling a whitey. I'm asking someone else to put my blimmin' fins in. I feel, I've got to, man. It's cost me like 2 grand
Well,
to
yeah, of
be here,
course.
and I've
Yeah.
got to make something count. I've got to get something out of it. This is what I used to do a lot. I used to, man. And then I'd jump on the red eye, go to Mavericks, I mean, that's wild activities. It's not natural to be doing that. Like, I've always felt more at ease and got my best rides from putting in stints at
Yeah,
places.
that makes a
And
ton of
that's what I've
sense.
always done. And that's what I do in Porto. That's what I do in Hawaii and everywhere in the world, Portugal, Ireland.
Yeah.
So this was supposed to be that one, mate, but it didn't really pan out.
Well, talk to us about the morning of the injury. What was your what were the conditions like, and what was your session like leading up to it?
The
How long
actual
were you out
condition.
there? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I always get up pretty. Got up 4 a.m. or I've always get up a good 2, 3 hours before the session. Drove down to Matahi's house. Um, Absolutely, you know, dreamy kind of connection with him this trip as far as jumping on the program with him, and he's just been such a epic, friend and host, and sort of just looking after me from start to finish. So he said, "Man, jump out, ride with me." And I'm on a boat ride. Usually, I'm paddling over the lagoon, like I'm doing it old school. This was like a dream. I felt like a real pro. So I'm going on the boat with Makana, Pang, and Guy Mack was shooting, and then Matai's heading over on the ski. So we're all convoying out, and pretty much off the bat, it was game on. Shane Ackerman was in the lineup along with a bunch of others, but I'm a mate of Shane's. I noticed he was obviously out there at first light. He'd already snagged his wave. He'd already had that big smile on his face when I jumped into the water. I was like, "How's it going, brother?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm already stoked." You know what I mean? I got my one, so that was cool. So yeah, he basically paddled into like a toe set, standard Shane, made it, and was stoked. So yeah, I mean, West, there was all sorts coming through. Everything was there wasn't really a warm up wave to be had that particular day. It was just back ledge doing its thing. So yeah, you can't like sniff out an insider and get your feet on the wax. It's like, well, you're going to go on one. It's going to be a barrel. I mean, the boys were the locals were just incredible to see in person. I've been watching them sort of progress since. I mean, back when I first came here, it seemed like there was obviously some charges for before I'd even come here, of course, but it feels like this last decade that the boys have just been done done done. And the sky's the limit, you know what I mean? And to be and see that in person, I was sitting in the lineup just in awe of seeing Matahi and Emio and all the lads just doing their thing in person. I was just like, this is cool. Um, yeah, just big blocks, walls coming through, popping out of nowhere, like top to bottom, just you know, yeah, basically as intimidating as it gets. Um, and I was just taking my time. I didn't want to. I don't rush like in big waves and heavy waves. I'm especially when it's not my spot. Like if I'm in Ireland, I can rush. I rush. I'll just get in amongst it because it's my spot. I know that like if a wave comes through, I've waited my turn. I'm going on it, and people call me in, and that's the vibe, and so I'll go on a set. But I'm conscious of the lads. They live here all year round. I've first swell. I'm come back for since the accident. I'm by no means a guy that's put in much time here, so I'm just going to take it easy, and that's what my mindset was. And when the right one comes through, if the right one comes through, I just know it. I've been in the game for so long. That's my sort of mentality going into heavy waves, sitting in a lineup. I don't try and feel pressured to do something. I've got nothing to prove to anyone. For me, it was just like, oh, if that right wave comes, I'll know it, and I'll just start going for it subconsciously. And so I was in the sort of pretty relaxed mindset, to be honest, because I'm back of the lineup really. Me, Sage, and the lads. We're not from there, and we're just sort of waiting on the edge. And I just figured if I wait long enough and the right the right one comes and the boys aren't there, that'll be my time. And so yeah, that was what I was doing really. And I picked off a handful of kind of just medium size, nothing special barrels. I'm standing in barrels. I'm getting spat out of little tubes. I'm happy. I'd achieved what I set out to do almost. I mean, yes, I didn't get the beast wave, whatever, or I wasn't trying to compare myself to what the lads were doing, which was mind blowing as always. I was just doing my thing. And I'd already felt like I'd overcome something by just building up and yeah, just getting in. I had one wipeout where I got almost lagooned and paddled back out. That was cool. Got that one out of the way as well. So yeah, it just felt like the confidence was building, to be honest. And it'd only been the first day of action really. So yeah, again, I didn't want to put pressure on going, you've got to make it all count. Today's got to be the day, right? I mean, today, right now, it's 12 foot out there and pumping. 4 days after I got hurt, it was 10 foot and pumping. So there's plenty of action to have been had, right? So I
Right.
know
Yeah.
that the season is upon us and it's only just started. So yeah, again, I can't stress that kind of mentality is where I'm at. That mindset is just like, don't rush this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And it's going to come if it's meant to. Yeah, and I kind of got to 12-ish or something, Natahi said his sister needs to go back to do some chores in town or something. So she's going to head back on the boat, but we'll go in, we'll get Natahi will just get a bite to eat of his, and then we're going to head straight back on the ski, or I can stay out. He's just been amazing. Like, I'm just like, I'd already seen him get like 10 foot pits. I'm just like, this guy's, it was something else. Like, it was almost like there's a spiritual connection. This guy is completely connected to this wave. And yeah, and he was just taking me on his little journey, helping me how he could. I was just like, mate, whatever you want to do, I'm just on your program. I'm just stoked. Like, and so he's like, yeah, we'll get one more. Yeah. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, hey, brother, because, I started to get my confidence. I said, if you see a bomb, like you don't really want it, just give us if you want to give us a shout, that'd be awesome, brother. But no worries, I was kind of putting it in there. And he was just like,
Right.
for sure, brother, I will, And I thought, oh shit, I've put myself in it now. Do you know what I mean? But I was kind of like, that's what I needed to do to like push me and to know that a wave's mine. I don't want to go on someone else. I don't want to annoy any locals. It's day one. It's not the program I'm on. So anyway, time passed, there was no sets coming in, and it was like, this sister's got to go, right? So there was a little bit of something happening there. And then a little west bowl, maybe 5 footer came through. Still a proper decent wave, that you can stand in a pit. So it's nothing, yeah, it's a heavy wave, right? Any wave out
Sure.
there. But I don't remember, I can't say to you now, oh, I remember seeing it. I remember taking off on it. I, I can't. So I don't want to lie and say I can just remember up until the point where we were going to head back for lunch and we had the conversation of like one more and
Yeah.
that I said I would like to get a bomb if possible. I guess I was just doing that. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I guess the problem here is I can't really say much else. I don't
Yeah.
remember anything. And that's so the last accident I had, we've got all this amazing journey of pain and enlightenment experiences, and it was completely far out, and there was so much to process and think about afterwards. This is more just I hit the blooming reef. I must have just gone. I made the drop. I've seen the footage. I think is the wave. It's again hard to know.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can tell me if that's the one, but I think I've seen the wave, and it's yeah, like a 4 or 5 foot little kind of. I pull in, and it looks like I probably got eaten in there, I guess. But I was in the barrel, which is the safest place to be as a surfer in heavy
Right.
waves, and I must have just hit the bottom. I'm assuming on my chin took the brunt of it because of how sore still the inside. I didn't break it though. I thought it was broken originally, but I had stitches on the cheek here, and the main stitches are across the bottom of my jaw here. So I've got a bit of a extension on the tattoo. um, and then, I also had stitches in the top of my head here. and two parts of my head here that have got stitches, but it didn't feel like a heavy impact um, on the head itself, besides the chin. And that's a sweet spot to get knocked out on,
Right.
as
Yeah.
any person knows. I think is what happened. Um,
So the last thing that you remember is just kind of just the conversation and the feeling
yeah,
like we're gonna get one more
yeah,
in, and then
yeah.
for you the next dot that gets connected is you wake up in the hospital. I'd imagine.
No, I
No.
wake
Okay.
up in the harbour,
Oh, right.
but
Okay.
I'm conscious before the harbour,
Yeah. Right.
but only through Vitea and Sage, but mainly Vitea coming over to my place, you know, the next day and the next day. We've been hanging real hard, like, just, yeah, words can't describe what that feels like to have had somebody genuinely save your life. It's quite something. I feel so vulnerable now. I can't. So hard to justify to my wife or anybody that I feel safe enough, or like that I can, because I train. I'm a daily training kind of dude, right? And
Sure. Yeah.
I'm so dedicated. You know what I mean? I'm not drinking, doing drugs. Like I've really put it all into this, mate. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and for that reason, I feel like the universe gives back to me. The ocean blesses me with the fact that I can come out of this in one piece each time. And I'm, coming back here, and I'm saying to my wife, I've said to you guys, I'm not so worried about like drowning or anything gnarly. Yeah, you're going to hit the reef. You're probably going to get abashed about a bit because it's sharp and it's shallow.
Hmm.
But I didn't expect this. I was more worried about a dislocated shoulder or something like that, right?
Sure.
An
Yeah.
injury, not a life-threatening kind of deal on a 5 foot wave again, especially not here, given the fact the last time I surfed it, a freak accident happened. If I show you footage of the day, you see the locals are falling. They're
Hmm.
sending it. They're making most of them, but they're going next level. The,
Right.
the internationals, they're jumping out the lip. They're getting smashed. I made all my drops. I'm not picking off the mega bombs. I'm not trying to be man of the match. And here we go, mate. We've had another. I'd say this is the most severe situation I've ever been in, but the aftermath, as you can see, is more mental than physical, uh,
Yeah.
compared to that painful months process of all the ribs broken and all that crazy stuff that was going on last time. You know what I mean?
Well,
But
we were saying that before we started recording. Is like you look in excellent health, at least through the screen. And I realize how valuable your time is. I certainly don't want to take up anything else than's needed for your recovery and family time. And I know you mentioned too, it's all very fresh. And having spoken to you as much as I have, I think having your family around you is the most important thing. And last question I'd ask for this update is, aside from obviously their well-being and your well-being, has there been any other particular thoughts or feelings that you've been centering around just during your recovery? And I mean, you've been very candid in this conversation, but I'm curious if there's anything else that you've just been focusing on, since the accident.
I mean, mainly I've just been trying to. I mean, Kalar Grace has been a help too. There's people on the ground here that are surfing right now, charging. Hope he gets some great waves as he's been so far. He's had situations.
Yeah.
Mackay McNamara reaching out. There's various people I've connected with about this sort of blackout situation, resuscitation, etc. This is something new to me. I've never been knocked out in the water. I've had a concussion before, like once at Porto.
Hmm.
So this is a new process. But that being said, because he's saying to me, "Hey, brother, how you feeling?" I'm saying I'm feeling real flat, real low, like super low. And even my family here, like I'm talking to you now, you're probably like, "Tom's on, Tom's sweet." You'll probably leave this, and people watching are going to be. But I'm putting it onto you now. I'm giving you energy, right? We're on a podcast, but like
Sure.
realistically, I had like 10 days of just being like this,
Yeah.
and I was just like, "This is not me, mate." Like last time, I was buggered, but I was whoa, and I was just smelling the flowers. You know what I mean? I'm Tahiti, like I was just my family, the world. Thank you, and I was feeling it. This time I'm like, but then Clara's like, brother, that ain't you. It's
Mm.
just your injury. It's all good, mate. You just ride it out. So I'm being conscious of that. That's the main process I'm going through. The last 3 days, we're coming up, mate. So that's where we're at today. This should be the best day yet because each day, the last 3 days has been, here we go. Like I'm coming back, and
Mm.
I just can't wait till I can go for a little paddle and stuff because my knee took a really big cut across it, like 20 stitches. And so that one's a bit still healing and, getting it wet here. It's not something I probably should do. Although I have been lobbing in the sea once a day to say hello, you know. And the main feeling I'm trying to get to, and I've kind of got to the last couple of days, is obviously gratitude.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful for all the kind prayers and messages people have sent, as well as obviously Vitea and Sage for literally saving my life because, you know, seeing the footage that Tim McKenna posted or something was quite a trip, man. I was
Yeah.
like, is that bloody me? They're doing compressions on me? Like, and then when the doctors, oh yeah, your cardiac arrest, starts saying all these things to you, you're looking at him like, yeah, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, get
Right.
ready to have that one, mate. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Um, but I am, but the ego's kind of spewing that I'm not surfing today. So that's a good thing again. Like the fact that I'm even thinking about going down I'm not thinking about going down the road, but I'm just, if I bloody had to, if someone said, look, someone's going to hurt your fam or something bad's going to happen, unless you go and send it on one today, I could go and do that. It would be a very stupid thing to do. I'm just saying, like, we're going to be all right. And I don't think it's the end of the story with me in this place. Like, I'm not saying I'm setting out to get the bomb thing and all that. That has never been the mission. I just want to enjoy the place like I did before it happened again. And if Tess is into that, which I respect hugely, because that's something that's been the most upsetting thing, to be honest, Dave, is just feeling guilty for putting the girls through what I have. That is the top of the thing out of everything. Um, and I got emotional about that a few times just because it's just not, yeah, you know what I mean, mate? Like it's supposed to be dream, right? We're in
Right.
dream world here. I'm still here. And in the dream, I look outside, there's mountains and palm trees. This place isn't even real. It's so beautiful,
Mm.
let alone how amazing the wave is. And I just want to be able to go out and show the fish with Tiger. I wanted to take her snorkeling and, and it became for a minute a bit of a nightmare. And so I felt guilty, still feel guilty about that. But obviously, you're asking anything changed feeling wise. You're probably thinking, oh, is he going to hand in the towel? But I can't answer that yet, mate. I'm just going to
No,
ride it for a bit.
of course. And I guess that wasn't really the
No,
agenda with that question.
no,
I
but you
mean,
know
I'm
what I
more
mean,
just,
though.
I,
It's a
I mean,
thought.
that I'm sure, I'll put it this way. I don't have to ask you that question to assume that you're probably thinking about it and probably always
Yeah,
thinking about it, right? But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
That's true.
appreciate the candor and like, I would say too that, yeah, being a father, I think we both know what it's like, but it's a double-edged sword. Like all the amazing things that make you an amazing person, amazing father, like this is sometimes the tax that gets paid. But
Yeah.
I think they're so lucky to have you there. And it's certainly not the end of your story. We will make it the end of this update because
Cool,
we
brother.
have a full conversation coming with you. And I'm so thankful to be able to speak with you again. I'm so thankful you're with us and you're on the recovery. And yeah, best
Yeah,
of luck to
thanks,
you,
brother.
Tom. And
We'll
yeah,
be all right, brother.
for sure. And thanks for the update. And everyone can now listen to Tom and my in-depth conversation from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, big love, everyone.
All right, we're back and we have a special guest with us today, returning to the pod after not a huge absence. We spoke to him in late 2023, but he has been very, very busy. You know him as the world-renowned big wave charger hailing from Cornwall in the UK. He's surfing for Vans, YETI, Christensen surfboards, and Down the Line surfboards. And he's dropping a movie with our friends over at YETI, Let Me Live, which is very appropriately titled. We have the inimitable Tom Lowe. Tom, thank you so much for coming back on the lineup, man.
Inevitable. What does that mean?
Cannot be imitated.
Oh,
pretty good word, right? I was surprised I got it out.
Mate.
Yeah.
I might use that one. No, I'll forget it in about 10 seconds. Go on.
What's going on? Where are we talking to you from today?
Same place that I was talking to you from a couple of years ago, Raglan. That's when my girls were born, and since then I've had another girl, beautiful little angel baby girl again. Her name's Chili, and
Beautiful.
she's charging around downstairs now. Been up since 4. Yeah, so it's all go. You know, never a dull
Life sounds
moment.
very good. Yeah, congratulations, man. That's awesome. Is it what has been your biggest observation having one kid to having 2 kids? What's changed the most for you as a dad?
I'd say, of course, like your windows for surf and things like that are slightly shortened, or you have to optimize your time a bit better than you used to, or sort of plan it a little bit more. And the school drop off for Tiger Lily, and all that sort of stuff comes into play. And yeah, but we're a really good team, me and the missus, you know what I mean? And like we kind of just flow through it pretty well and find our rhythm. And like, she's she's the best mum ever, and she's still feeding through the night. Like, she's incredible. So I think that helps a huge amount. But we're just a good little team, man. I mean, I think it's definitely ramped things up, like ramped it up a level of like intensity, but it's good intensity. I mean, the bond that Tiger has with Chili is so special, and the sisters, and seeing that kind of flourish it's been beautiful, and so they're great. They're a great little unit.
You-
Yeah.
The last time we talked, you very articulate and candid about kind of the risk reward transformation with your particular career, previously versus becoming a relatively new dad. I don't want to ask about that again. I'm more curious about, have you found like any kind of like, maybe something you can't describe, but like an energy source or like a momentum or a motivation just from being a father and having that kind of really tight family in some of the projects? Because we're going to get into it, but again, you've been really productive. So I'm curious if it's added motivation in a way that's felt tangible to you.
I think that, yeah. I mean, a simple answer is yeah. I mean, I feel like everything I do now, I just truly do from the heart. And I'd like to say I used to, that's just me through and through, but like my instincts tuned right in here, like on all levels, like families first, right? We're a little unit, and leaving them to go on these missions, swell missions, is becoming harder. That's a fact. So in that sense, I guess it's less inspiring to want to go on missions and surf heavy waves. But at the same time, when I do go, I make it count. You know what I mean? Like I don't like, I feel like I'm all in more than ever. And so, for instance, when I was in Ireland this winter, I did nearly 2 months away from the family, and I actually just went fully old school. I was speaking to the fam and all, but I was off social media for a couple of months, and I just tuned right into the presence of Ireland, and it was just an incredible journey in itself. We scored the sickest waves, did sort of January, February, heart of winter. It was wicked. And then had I had a couple of really memorable rides, which I'm so stoked on still, but it then, like you say, with the risk reward but sort of thing comes into play, or the yin yang of what I'm up to came into play. And at the end of this last swell run, before finally the ocean decided we're going to go crap, and I was finally going to head home after this last Mullaghmore day. I got absolutely smoked, and actually board. I hit some chops going through the bowl, and the board, I disconnected with it, and then when I landed to try and stick the airdrop sort of thing, the rail of my 9.3 whacked into the same side I got smoked on a few years ago at Chopu, and I actually fractured my rib at the bottom there. Different one, and then during that wipeout, a lot of like the muscles around the rib cage underneath, like you call them, like the intercostal muscles, they had some tears in them, which have been really hard to heal. So I had 2 months out the water. Yeah, after all that, and so I'm still sort of feeling it in the here and now. So it's quite interesting that a couple of years later, here I am talking to you again. When I was talking to you back then, obviously I was in the thick of it with my recovery, and here I am again in the thick of it, but like out the end and on a minor scale, because this is not as severe at all, not close to. It wasn't very traumatizing or anything like that. Of course, it was a bit scary for the moment when you're rolling underwater and you feel something is very wrong. But it was kind of put quickly into perspective. When I came up, I knew what it was. I got a lift in, and during that lift in by Connor Maguire, he picked me up and he said, "Oh, Noah got absolutely smoked on the wave before as well. My mate Noah Lane." I shouted him into the first wave of that set, and he hit the bottom, broke his pelvis, and split his head open. And had 10 staples in his head. So it kind of quickly shifted into, "Hey, you're all right, mate. You just bashed yourself."
Yeah, right.
Your brother.
Relatively speaking, you're doing great. Yeah.
Well, your
right.
man, and then it was like everyone was like, "How's Noah doing?" Do you know what I mean? Meanwhile, I was at home like that, like for the next, couple of weeks, and actually trying to travel back here after getting smashed was one of the gnarliest journeys of my life.
Right.
I left the next day. I just had to get back home to the girls, So that mission was hellish, but one of that sort of my life, of that one was driving up the driveway after not seeing him for a couple of months, all smashed up, but so bloody stoked to just be returning. And I was just like, there they were in the driveway, with the little dresses, like, "Hey, Dad is home." I was just like nearly in tears, I didn't mean it was just the best thing ever. So I guess I'm still in that sort of somehow flow of the journey I'm on, which is the big highs and I guess the big lows sometimes, and it's pretty nuts what I put myself, into sometimes. Sometimes I feel like it's not my choice, but I guess we do have choices, right? I could just hand in the towel and settle down here in New Zealand and live a normal life, but I guess I'm not quite ready to do that.
It's interesting to hear you break that down too, because I think that is a really like potent drumbeat in this new project and this film you have with YETI, Let Me Live. It's a beautiful portrait with some really good characters that have orbited your life, but that through line of, this is who I am, and very candid about all the risks and rewards. But talk to us a little bit about the film project. Like, how did that get started with YETI? I think, Keith Malloy and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, by Marion
I always
Films.
Do too.
Yeah, they produced it. So how did you guys all get in touch, and how did the project start?
I'm a fan of Keith's and the Malloy brothers, you know what I mean? Like since day one, watching films with them and shit, you know what I mean? So we follow each other on Instagram and that, and I'm just buzzing on everything he's doing. So anyway, he reached out and said, I think I think I mentioned in the other podcast we had, but I met Keith in person and the lads filming Emmy doing her thing, right? And I was with my baby. It was Tiger Lily when she was a baby, at the Sunrise Shack thing, whatever. And then he was like, after that, he just then reached out. I was down in Porto Escondido, and he said, "Oh, Lowe, do you want to like connect on a call?" And we'd be buzzing to make a film. And I was just like, didn't have to like ask me again, you know what I mean? I was straight up like, "Of course, man, that would be an honor. Like, I'd be stoked to have you like down Cornwall home and go over to Ireland and stuff." Like, epic. So that's pretty much how next couple of months later, he's flying in with his crew, and they're just the most, I don't know, gentlemen, humble, coolest dudes to work with ever. Just
Hmm.
it didn't feel like we're filming nothing. Everything was just organically flowing into one shot to another, and nothing was really set up bar the interview. And even they were pretty mellow because Keith's just chatting to you. It was really a pleasure to do. You know what I mean? And like everything just felt fun. They came for a couple of weeks. We went to Ireland, and I took them to all my little sacred places, and we tuned into it, and it just felt real. And yeah, great to have the family in there as well. You know what I mean? Like my mum and stuff like that, and dad. And I felt like, I mean, watching the film, I just felt like they did just the best job ever. You know, like they felt like me. Mickey's music in there, Mickey Smith.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like a mentor to me in a lot of ways, and along, you know, one of my best mates. And yeah, just to include that, it just added to that dimension of like, who I am, or like, yeah, just brought out the real side of me. I think that film did, and I can't wait to share it. Do you know what I mean? It's been like years that we've had it and kept it kind of under wraps in a way, and it's been shown at a few festivals and stuff. But um, I'm just stoked to just like, yeah, be able to share it with my mates and my family to watch it. No one's really seen it at all, you know, so it's pretty exciting.
Well, I got a sneak peek, and it's really, really beautifully made, and the story's excellent. And I certainly don't want to spoil the actual film, because I think everyone should check out Let Me Live as soon as this podcast drops. But one of the important things that you cover in the film, and I know we talked about this last time, is how, you know, Cornwall in the UK is a pretty unconventional place for a professional surfer to come from. And you're just so candid about, you know, developing, and still, you know, even when the friends and the figures in your life are like, you are good enough to be a professional, you are good enough to, could be your career. For you, you were kind of just like, I'm just pushing it, and I don't even think that's a reality for me. And I'm curious, like, you know, flash forward to 2025, and you have this film, it's coming out, you're working with one of your heroes, Keith Malloy, you're world renowned. It's such a transformation, I'd imagine, psychologically from that original place. And I'm curious if any of that, our imposter syndrome that you speak of, has changed for you at all.
Well, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I always go back home, so you know, I'm always grounding back home every year. And
Mm,
then going, I mean, and where I'm living, it's like, this is like small towny, like no one judges each other, no one even knows what you're about or what you do or it cares. It's just a little surf town, and it feels like, you know, the last couple of weeks has felt like some old school vintage surf movie or something I'm living in, because I'm just like surfing with a handful of people in great waves. And yeah, like it's I think I don't really, I live like almost two separate lives. It feels like sometimes like a split
mm,
personality thing where like I gear up for a swell or something, right? And then when I'm there, I'm like, you know, peaking, and I'm all into it, and I'm around all these superhuman surfer dudes that are just ripping like it's a scene and whatever, and I'm kind of that version or whatever. And then I click back in real quick to like family mode, and I'm all in dad, you know what I mean? We don't have any like
yeah.
family or help support around, so I'm just like locked in on fan mode. And then I'm around people that don't give a shit about any scene or anything. They're just like normal dudes. Just, it's New Zealand, you know what I mean? It's pretty old school here. It's epic. That's why I love it. You know, it's very grounding, and it's a bit like home. So to be honest, it just feels, yeah, I don't really think I don't really give myself a chance to like be proud of it or like think of it in that
Mm.
way. I don't go down that road, to be honest. I'm just more in it. I'm still in the thick of it, you know. And then when you got little ones running around, that consumes all of your energy and time often. So to be honest, it's all about them and like the kids now. That takes the forefront of all of my being, you know, really. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty hellish journey. I'm still milking it, still happening. I'm still hanging
Well,
in here.
and I mean, that kind of like being present right? Whether you're on a surf trip and you're just, as you pointed out, you're off of social media, you're focusing on the goals at hand and the projects, or you're home and you're not thinking about, oh, I wish I was on a surf. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think, my own personal experience, and I think most people in 2025 are so easily distracted. So being able to focus on the one thing, it's like, I'm going to be a dad now, or I'm going to be a partner now, or I'm going to be a professional surfer now. It makes a lot of sense, and it makes sense that you've had such success in these arenas as well.
It's nice. I think it's a healthy thing too. You know what I mean? Because it's quite. I mean, it sometimes takes me. It usually takes me a good week or two to get back to being present and being normal after putting myself through that crazy stuff. Sometimes, like we went to Jaws for that crazy week as well. In the winter, and I was staying at Albie, Leia's place and all, and just seeing just seeing being around him was so inspiring. You know what I mean? And like the kids, what they're up to, it's incredible. But like yeah, that the amount of energy that week brought, and then climaxing into like the biggest day probably in history ever attempted to paddle. I didn't even catch a wave, but just being around that energy and avoiding them ginormous sets and watching the guys turn and go underneath, some of them was mind blowing. And like to come back then, a few hours later, you're back, just walking up and down with baby and things. And like, it was hard to shift that. And then
Right.
sleep, you forget about sleep for a good week because your nervous system, that adrenaline runs in the system, man, like for so long. And, these are things that you don't often see people sharing, like that aspect of stuff. Like it completely jolts you out of your flow of normality, and you're like all over the shop. You're like a mess. It's like being a nervous wreck. It's like you've been on a festival, 3-day festival afterwards, but it's like a natural one, right? And you're just there going like, trying to get back to normality, and it's tough. It's tough for the family too sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I talked to Tess about it, and we actually did a little interview thing that was just off the cuff about what you up to, Tom. You know what I mean? What's going on over there? She started filming me, the kids running around, and I was trying to talk about it, but and it came out kind of weird, but it's hard to process, and you do all you can to help yourself out, whether it's like, I don't drink, I rarely drink at all, or special occasions, things like that. That ain't going to help. Do you know what I mean? There's no partner
Yeah.
involved. You got the sauna, you got the ice bath, you got the connecting with the sea, right? You just go back in the ocean. That usually refreshes the system. You're just doing what you can to like get through those times, but it's definitely I guess, as cheesy it sounds, like a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? There's like
Yeah.
there's two sides of it, man, and like you've got to, with every reactions and stuff. So you've got to like whatever you put in your system. It's gonna have its reaction. Whatever it might be, and when you're tapping into that energy, those heights, you're gonna crash down, and you're gonna have to deal with it. And it's an ongoing process, and nothing. I haven't mastered it by any means, and it's just what it is. And if you add an injury into that, then you're really going to feel it. And it's going to be
No
a longer
question.
journey.
Well, I mean, you come from a unique place. You've cleaved a unique path in surfing, and it's beautifully portrayed in Let Me Live, which airs June 25th on YouTube. So everyone check that out. We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we will come back and catch up some more with Tom Lowe. All right, we are back. This is the lineup. I'm Dave Prodan here with Tom Lowe. Tom, I appreciate all your insights and your candor, like both conversations. I mean, you're so articulate about this kind of stuff. And you mentioned, the family unit and how you guys are based in Raglan now. And I'm just curious, when you're home, like what is like a day-to-day for you at the moment? Like, are you up training? Are you checking the waves? Is it like, what's your routine like?
I've definitely got a routine, but goes off feel as well. So I don't do plan week or something like that, right? So I'm not that dude. I'm not like a heart rate, like timing dude and all that sort of stuff. It's by feel, but like where I'm at the moment, physically, like recovering from this rib injury thing. So it's like
Right.
I've been focusing on trying to just put my time in the water, right? Just surf, surf, surf. So getting my surf fitness back has been the priority the past like 3 weeks. Because every time I lie on my board, I'm like uncomfortable, and then it starts to warm up and loosen up, and then I can get my groove on, and then I can just kind of forget about it. But I'm still in that one. But I've been basically up at 4 every morning for 3 weeks straight. Sometimes by choice, sometimes not. Depends with the kids. But I'm always up by 5, regardless. It's just what my body clock's been for forever. But and I'm getting the girls kind of sorted in a lot of ways. So that's the routine. Do you know what I mean? There's a bit of like getting a little like toast action and breakfast for little one while she's doing what she's doing, maybe set her up with a bit of painting or whatever it is, just to sort of like, and as I'm doing that, I'm doing my little stretches. Yeah, this is part of the routine. It takes 15, 20 minutes.
Multitask. Yeah, no, I got
the body.
you.
Let's do a bit of foundation. Let's try and get the body kind of moving a little bit. And then I'm going out the door by, at the moment it's not light till 6:30, 6:45. So, but usually I'm out the door at about 6, and I'm driving to the point or to the beach, and I'm suiting up no matter what is the program. So I'm committing to whichever spot I feel like might have a little something for me, and it's dark and I can't see anything. And I've got my hour window then of doing what I'm doing to an hour and a half before I come back for school drop, and then it's Tigerly to school. And when I come back, I take Chili with me as well. She's in the car. We're all charging over. It's a 30-minute drive. She goes to school, come back. Chili will either fall asleep in the car or she's going to come back for a bit of milkies and a sleep. And then I have a little nap with Chili. Sometimes I get my little 20, 30-minute nap. I'm always going to try and lie down, even if it's my mind's not ready for a chill. My nervous system needs to have a little downtime then, and I'll just lie next to Chili and have a little time with her and just a quiet time for myself. Up and either another brew of coffee to just charge into the next thing, which is, sometimes a team walk in the bush. We're surrounded by beautiful native bush here. We live in paradise underneath the mountain here in Raglan, and we might just go for a team hike for an hour, hour and a half with Chili on the front pack. Do you know what I mean? But more often than not, at the moment, I want to go for another surf if I can, and I'm going to hit that either then or, an hour or two later, So that's kind of the program at the moment. It's just been surfing, and then we always do an afternoon team. Me and the missus sauna ice bath. We'll take it in turns apiece. She loves it. She'll have 20 minutes in the sauna, 3 minutes in the ice, and that'll kind of be her done. And then the girls will have a team bath. And that's the program, man. And then it's pretty early nights, like we're all asleep by 8:30, 9, but like the girls will be, my kids will be in bed by 6:30 at the moment. It's dark, and that's the program, man. And then sometimes I'll just have a yoga hour and a half instead and not go for a morning surf, but I tend to, at the moment, like I say, I'm just trying to get my surf on, and especially at the moment, because I'm looking at a bit of swell potentially going to kick off next week at Chopu, and I've not been back there since my accident, and so I'm trying to put a bit of time in the water,
Well, it's always a good idea. When you saying you're more of a morning person than an evening person, I relate to that. I've always been a morning person, and when you're a kid, you're like, well, I mean, all the movies and TV shows and the surf, everyone's out late partying, and so for me, I don't speak for everyone, but like tried it and was just like, I'm not like, as soon as it hits like 10 o'clock, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I've always been more comfortable just getting up early. Was that always the case for you too, or did you ever try to kind of burn the candle at both ends?
Of course, not always. I mean, like I've lived another life before this till I was like 22, 23. It was when I first got sponsored, right? So I mean, I think I mentioned that before, but I'm lifeguarding, I'm washing dishes, and then I'm doing double shifts 6 days a week in the summer in the thick of it, and then I'm going out too, partying like every night with the kitchen crew, and then after that you clean up, and then you're charging down to the club, and that's what you're doing, and it's just down the beach every day, and this is me at 20 odd, and that's the program, like, and
Yeah.
it didn't ever feel right, like it actually didn't feel right if I'm deadly on. You walk, still a bit drunk, and you're heading back to your
Sure.
house, and you're thinking like, that don't feel right, like it doesn't feel right. Like, I want to just, there's something else going on in me, like wants to be
Mm.
somewhere else and doing something else. But it's a chapter in your life, and then like I say, I went to Ireland, and that really was the biggest shift. I mean, losing my
Mm.
best mate, um, our community's best friend in a lot of ways, a really loved brother of ours, had an accident during that period where we'd been to Ireland together, we tapped into that energy, and we knew it was what we wanted to do. And then he had an accident following that trip within that 2 week period. And this is when I'm like 22 years old. And
Mm.
for us and for myself, that really kind of like, it was a big reality check in a sense how precious life is. And it just wasn't even a thing I can put into words. It was just a paradigm shift. It was a big shift of myself of like, I'm going all in on this surfing thing. It was just
Right.
what I was doing. I didn't like talk about it. It was just like Mickey Smith and the lads are like, well, they're just getting in amongst it over there. Like Mickey lives in Ireland. Like Mickey's like, come over, And so we sent our friend off, and we said our goodbyes in a sense or whatever in that way. But he's always with us. Tom Greenway is his name, and he's this is obviously something that is a huge part of me, but like still, but like then I channeled that energy into like this surfing thing, and then at that same moment in time, Mickey finding these waves, taking me there, me being able to be the first surfer ever to surf this wave. I mean, what a gift. Oh, thanks, Mickey. Like I'm there and it's happening, and then it's pictures, and he's saying you can be a pro. Like
Mm.
I'll put together a little something, we'll get you sponsored, you know what I mean? And I'm like mental. And then we're going to Tahiti, we're trying to surf Chopu, you know what I mean? And then we're trying to surf West Oz and other places, and it was incredible, um, journey. But it wasn't always the early night thing for me, mate.
Yeah.
It used to be all sorts, but like it feels right. I mean, for me, I don't want to miss out on that precious morning. I love the mornings. I'm all about that early morning stillness and energy.
Yeah,
You know?
and I wouldn't knock anyone that's a night owl. Like it's more I come at it from like
Nah,
my twins. It's like
just
my
to
daughter's
each
like
their own,
she
isn't it?
gets up at like 4, and my son will sleep till 10, etc. And I don't know. For me in particular, any of those
Your
nights
son
where
sleeps till 10.
oh, if I let him, he would for sure. That's just kind of how he goes.
Oh, I
He
want
gets
one of
up.
them.
Yeah, I know. Imagine, but like I think we're
Yeah.
all young and we're experiencing it too. But I think for someone like myself, and maybe for like morning people, like being awake and seeing the sun come up is a particularly terrifying experience. Where you're like, "Oh, this feels wrong. Like I'm not doing the right thing."
Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a lot of stuff around my sleep that, this is something that, I've never spoken about to you guys or whatever, but like, I'm very anxious around sleep. It feels very important to me. I definitely, I go through, I've got my earplugs, I put in my earplugs and I'm get all into it. It's like a thing, right? And if it gets to like, like 6, 7 at night, and the girls aren't asleep yet, and I'm not ready to like wind down, have my own little space, and for a minute, I start to get like anxious, and this is real. I mean, because I know
Yeah,
that in the
I
morning,
feel you. Yeah.
I want my morning, man, and like, and I want to feel charging, especially because of the kids too. You need, like, they deserve that full energy from me too, and like I want to be able to like be on for the team. I don't want to be, and so I worry that if I don't get this sleep, I'm going to be off, and I'm going to be all grumpy dada. But I'm, weirdly enough, it's funny because it's all in your head. A lot of, well, not all, but to a certain extent, you can retell the story and reprogram. And my wife's a clinical psychologist, so she's worked a bit with me, I think, over the years and helped me figure that one out. But I think the swell chasing business and all that stuff is not is a precipitating factor, or whatever. It's a big,
Yeah.
factor in this too. I think once that one at some stage, subsides, I will then, I think, be normal. I hope.
Yeah. No,
Around
that makes that makes a
evenings.
ton of sense. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I won't out this particular professional surfer, but I was on a trip with them in Tahiti during the event, and we ended up going to Moorea to do the Coral Gardeners thing. And it was this random, like, this surfer had flown in the night before, the bus picked us up at 3:30, we were on the ferry, it was the whole thing, right? And there's a few of us there, and this person would fall asleep within 2 seconds, like on the bus, out, up for check-in, on the ferry, out. And I'm like, how is this happening? Like, and then they said, oh, they did like sleep training with the Navy SEALs where they can like shut their own body down within like 20 seconds,
Yes,
like
please.
that. And I'm like, man, that sounds amazing.
Yes,
I would love to
please.
do that.
Yes, please, man. Sign me up. Like, me and you, let's fly in. I'll
Let's
fly
do
in for
it.
that anytime, man.
We will threaten to out this pro surfer unless they tell us where they trained for
Yes,
this.
please.
But
Whoever you
back
are.
to your daily routine. I'm curious, big wave surfer like yourself, you're at home, you're in Raglan, you're either going to the point, you're going to the beach break, not waves that often resemble, Mullackmore or Tehopu or anything like that. What's your quiver like, for smaller days like that? Do you have like a bunch of boards that you bring, or do you just have one go-to for every day?
No, I mean, it's like I got my flippers are always in there, so there's a lot of swimming and body surfing involved. And when I'm surfing, like oftentimes, like at the moment, it's like 8 to 10 foot at the point on shore. I'll be probably the only person that will paddle out today. And the only reason I didn't paddle out this morning is because we had this. But usually I'm in the dark pump down there, right? And I'm out there, and that's when I can get into that space of, uncomfortableness in a sense, because it is just getting light and you haven't even checked it, and you're just committing to paddling out. You're jumping off rocks, you're hopping around. It's all a bit sketchy. By no means is it like life threatening or something, but there's ways to get myself into that space, and by getting myself a little bit uncomfortable, that's the go-to. Do you know what I mean? And like I often will swim if it's flat. I'm swimming, at dawn, and yeah, it just feels a bit uncomfortable. There's sharks, there's all sorts going on, but you learn to kind of compartmentalize those things, and that in a sense can translate into your big wave surf mission. And when you're out there staying calm in those pressure situations or whatever, and same in the ice bath, it's like, okay, it might not give you that uncomfortable, you kind of desensitized to it now, your head's out and you're like, this is, it's cold and it's a bit uncomfortable, I need to take it further. So I'm you're going under, and then I'm going down to where my just nose is out and I'm nose breathing, the ears are under, so you're getting that. I think it's called the mammalian reflex. I like using that. It could be,
Sounds
but
good.
it's when you're under the water and you tap into that other part of your brain or whatever. But just being underwater and submerged, basically, with your ears in, again puts you in that different space, and it's obviously cold as fuck, and your head's under and whatnot. So you just that sort of stuff. You kind of don't force yourself to do it. I enjoy the process of, I guess, winning those little mini battles, and that can, like I said, go into your surfing. I think it directly does, in the future, go into like those situations where you're paddling out and it's monstrous and you're going, oh God, it's one of these days, it's one of the days where you've got to like go for gold or not go at all, and don't bob around out here if you're not up for it. Just get out. If you're not, don't second guess this, like, because it's serious, and then you can really, I guess, practice what you've implemented during that build up, and naturally happens. You just you curve that fear. You know what I mean? You channel it, and I'm scared now. I'm talking to you. I'm being a bit nervous. I didn't sleep very well, not because of this, but because of Tahiti next week. Maybe it's like, oh God, here we go. So we got that build up coming, and now I've got to like really try my best to be present. That's the mission. Just one step at a time. Like, you know, who knows what's going to happen? I might wake up tomorrow, the swell's downgrade and it's not even there, right? And suddenly you're sleeping good, but you've like put yourself through this imaginary crap for no reason. So it's trying to be
Right.
real about what's actually going on and not imagine the future, predict the future. No one can.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's a very tricky balance, like mentally and psychologically, to balance the two spaces of I want to be as prepared as possible for this situation, but I don't want to overthink it to the point where I've exhausted myself before I even get there. And in a lot of ways, like you see this in sports all the time, and even in surfing, you talk about like Kelly Slater wrote a whole book called Letting Go, and it was all like, I'd rather be as distracted as possible before the moment, so I'm not thinking about it until then. But can you speak to us a little bit about that in your experience?
Yeah, because I think I've definitely, there's probably a few crew out there that's similar to me, but like most of the lads I know aren't, that's for sure. They like to be in crews and distracted, like you say, and they do travel often with filmers and bunch, and they're having a laugh, and they're, you know, meeting up for dinner the night before surfs and stuff, and I'm in Ireland, and they're all like that, you know, people are busy.
Yeah.
I like to just go through it. Like, it's almost like I like to run myself through it. It's like I put myself through it. I don't know why. It's harder. It's almost like a little therapeutic journey each swell, because you're processing things come up that you're not aware of in the day to day. And that's because, you know, you're scared and you're separating yourself from everyone, and you're giving yourself that space and that time for stuff to surface. And it's quite daunting, because sometimes you just, like you say, you exhaust yourself and you've overthought it and blah blah blah. But then sometimes, but I just keep wanting to do it that way. I think from my end, I feel more anxious being around people and not being tuned into where I'm at deep down than being on my own program. I like to be on my own program. I just want to turn up and paddle out. You jump off the rocks, and you know, like in Tahiti, I just want to paddle over the lagoon, connect with it, feel it out. I don't want to be like on boats and around people or skis and all that sort of stuff. That's why I never really enjoyed the big wave competition thing, because it was just nuts. You know, you turn up and you'd be like, well, normally I just want to go and send it. I'm ready to go for gold now. And then you deviated, and 3 hours later, you've then got to surf, and you've only got 40 minutes. And I mean, I'm just going to gift my mate that wave, because he's in a good spot and he wants it, obviously. Whereas, you know, he probably should be like, oh, I'm going because I've actually been waiting longer, or I should probably try and snake you because it's a contest or something. I can't do that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so that doesn't work for me, the contesty thing. But
I think that makes sense, particularly with big wave surfing in a way, you know, where it's like, as you pointed out, it's such a radically different canvas, like hour to hour. And your really experience.
I really love, like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just want to say that I really love like that heightened senses heightened before the swell. What I'm talking about is like, that's when you really start tapping into yourself and nature. And I can only get to that place before the swells. It's almost like it's hard here because there's no big, like, scary waves, right? So I don't enter that place until it's, you know, Mission, like, Mullaghmore or Jaws or somewhere. And then I'll start to get nervous. And through that nervousness and separating myself, and you start to enter that state. And I love that. That's the part I'm like, it's scary, but it's like, I can't get there any other way. And that's the part that I like, you know, even though it's scary and stuff, I like it.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I mean, we mentioned, you know, a couple of those through lines in this film, Let Me Live, and one of them being about that journey to becoming someone who's, you know, I know it's probably an awkward term, but a professional surfer, where you're not having to wash dishes to chase huge swells. You're being paid to do it, and we mentioned your sponsors, Vans and Yeti, Christensen surfboards, down the line surfboards, and I think since last time we talked too, even some of these projects probably afford you like really interesting relationships with other team riders too. I know, Harry Bryant's another Vans team rider, and you featured in his film Motel Hell. Like, can you talk to us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I think I knew over in Hawaii, like because I went there when I was younger. I know a lot of like like Nathan Fletcher and a lot of like the OGs and like things just from putting some time in there and making real connections off the ground. Just without vans and stuff coming to the picture. But for sure, like I mean, I knew Harry before Motel Hell like was filmed and all that. Like he's always been like one of my favorite surfers since he came about. Like I guess, and like his 100-mile-an-hour approach and like full committed approach, and always I love that style of surfing. As well as your Craig Andersons and your sort of that I love to see too. But that raw, like crazy energy that Harry has is unique, and he's a one-off special human. But yeah, I mean, some of the events I get to go to, I mean, even when I was younger, like especially when I was younger, I got to meet all my favorite skaters. Like I'm a skater before a surfer. Not that I skate any good, but I started skating before surfing. And yes, meeting Tony Alva and I mean all them Jeff Grosso, ROP, but that kind of thing. So it was just epic to be around all these radical dudes, you know, Cardiel and things like that is just like my favorite skater, and like and he's DJing at an event, and I'm seeing everyone ripping. It's just crazy. So yeah, I've been stoked to have those experiences, and some of the some of the opportunities that they've given me has been yeah, a blessing. I'm stoked on them for sure. That No
Yeah.
Hell thing was wicked. That was so fun. That was the
Such a
funnest
good film.
surf
Yeah.
trip ever, man. It was funny because I nearly didn't go on it because of the timing. It was just like it was COVID times kind of style, and like I remember it was just after, and I couldn't get into New Zealand for ages. Um, the girls were here, and I would have had to quarantine. They were finally, for a few weeks. So I'm like, I was in Hawaii. Finally, they opened the borders, and I'm coming back, and I'm so flipping excited. I haven't seen the girls for like, a few months, and it was just Harry's like, oh, the trip's now, Loey. Like, there's a bit of action in Ireland. Let's go. And I said, oh, mate, I'm actually in LA. I'm about to fly to New Zealand. You know what I mean? He's like, I'll have a night's sleep. Have your sleep, because he knows me really well. Have your little sleep, Loey, and then give us a bell. So I had my little sleep, and then when I woke up, I went, all right. Tess was like, cool, go for it. That'll be, you got to go for it. Tess, my wife, and
Yeah.
yeah, man, old school surf trip. That's all I'm going to say. It was super core surf trip, wicked bunch of crew. We had like Tom Robinson, like he calls himself Lobster Cooked on Instagram. He was on board photographing me, which was a trip because that first trip to Ireland when Riley's the slab was first surfed, and all this was literally he was there as a professional bodyboarder at the time, right? So it's a full circle situation where he's suddenly on board as this, because he's creatively amazing. He's not bodyboarded for like a decade almost, and throughout that trip, he picked up the bodyboard and got one of the barrels of the trip. Do you know what I mean? Just cool stuff happening. Dave Fox, Fox and Socks, he calls himself, whatever on Insta. But Dave, he is one of Mickey Smith's old friends, and we actually named a van after him, Big Dav, which was the van we went to down to Riley's the first time it was surfed. And I didn't know Dav, and this is all like 15, 20 years ago, stuff. And then again, that's that weird situation where you're like, hey, Dav's filming me. It's Big Dav, you know what I mean? This is crazy. And, you felt like you're brothers because we all had this sort of connection from way back in the day. But that trip was funny. It was fun, mate. Like, yeah, those boys were just in the moment peoples, and just it really helped bring the kid out of me as well, so I was just having fun, and enjoying it. Like, it wasn't so serious at all, and wasn't this, deep spiritual journey every swell like I go on. I get all like tuned in and getting all that one. It was the opposite. I mean, it was just pure fun, and the boys are ripping. You know what I mean? Seeing them surf. Wade Goodall was over, and again, one of my favorite surfers. And like you say, Van's connected the dots, man, and he's on the trip.
Right.
I'm going mental. Like, I get to surf with Wade. You know what I mean? Do you remember
Yeah.
Passion Pop and stuff? I mean, what the heck?
I went to the
legend.
premiere of Passion Pop in college on the Gold Coast, man. Yeah, and it shows in the film, and it is a funny thing, like, with professional surfing, like, everyone's got a mortgage to pay. I'd never knock anyone for taking a sponsor that helped them out in their life, of course. But sometimes we were looking at sponsorships going like, I don't know if that guy uses that product. But with you in particular, like, it's so organic, right? With like Vans and your skating background, like, it makes a ton of sense. Obviously, Christensen surfboards and down the line surfboards, very organic. And then with something like YETI.
Down the line,
oh, sorry, go on.
Shop.
Yeah.
Down the line surf shop.
Excuse me.
So
down the line surf
they're
shop.
Actually, like, from Hale, they're my old school surf shops. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up going to that surf shop for wax, and like you say, yeah, exactly, mate. It just fits into the program. Like,
makes total sense. And even with YETI, right? YETI are supporting this podcast, but they've been a supporter of yours for years. And talk to us just a little bit about that program. And now that you're, super dad, you got a couple of kids, like, what are the everyday products that you use from YETI?
Well, I mean, YETI are just like, they're like family, like literally like family. I know it sounds like everyone would say that, but they are. Like, I know the bosses. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can phone them up. Like, that's a trip. Yeah. You're just a team rider, You can't usually do that with these big companies, but they are real people with a real brand, you know what I mean? And you pick up, hey, what's happening? It's like, I might go to Tahiti next week and I'm shitting myself, but like, should we make something cool about it? And like, what you reckon? And he's like, yeah, cool, man. Let's make it happen. This is off the moment to moment. So we're going to potentially like make something from this swell next week, if it eventuates in Tahiti, about me going back and pretty much facing my fears, of being back at that spot that nearly killed me. But and like, they're just a rad crew of people, and they don't want to feel like they don't want to water down who they are. Like, they're just going to keep it real, and they have so far. And they're big, but they're still keeping it core. And the sort of things that they support, I always feel like come from a real place. You know what I mean? They're not like, they're community based. You know what I mean? They love just. They don't give a crap about how many followers you got and this, that, and the other. They're just all about who you are and, keeping it real. So I really appreciate them. But, I mean, we're just, beach days are just to go with the wheelie, coolers. They're just, the kids jump on the thing and I wheel them down the hill. We just put all the cat kit in there, like, whether it's obviously food and whatnot, but it's the wetsuits all just gets chucked in the sun creams. So we're using that one on a daily when it's beach days. And, me and the missus were down there, we're sitting on these new deck chairs, just frothing, after the sauna, having our smoothies in the evenings, and kids are running around on the grass. It's like, stuff just gets used and it doesn't get hammered. You're using it in years and years and years to come, right? So, I mean, on a surf basis, the waterproof backpack, still the go-to. It's just like, when I'm charging down the goat tracks and going on my surf missions, clothes, shoes all go inside, zipper up, and it's pissing down the rain. When you come back out, your shit's dry. That's the game changer. I mean, obviously you can do the Plazzy bag thing, but not too trustworthy sometimes if she gets ripped, and it's not exactly waterproof. So nice that I upgraded that program.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why, like, we're very fortunate to have them as a partner too. But like, the products work, whether your dad like us or not, like, they're bulletproof, so they last forever. And then they invest in cool stuff like, surfers like yourself and your stories. And, we'll take one more quick break to get a word in from our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's on the horizon for Tom Lowe. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are back. This is the Lineup Podcast. I am Dave Prodan here with Tom Lowe. Tom, last time we talked, you were recovering from a pretty serious injury and accident in Tahiti at Teohupu, and you're talking about now on this podcast, it's probably happened by the time this gets released, but you were planning to head back there. Talk to us a little bit about that and what you're feeling heading into this trip.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I was said earlier, I got bugger all sleep again last night, so there's definitely something going on. We're pretty nervous. It's funny because I was actually not allowed to travel at all following the accident a few years ago. So I had to stay in Tahiti for 6 weeks to let my lungs heal before going into altitude, right? So I had that time with my family. It's one of the most special times of our life, even though I was in so much pain, like it was horrendous. But we were so obviously happy that I was in one piece, that I was alive, and we were all together. And obviously, Chile, our little one was in the belly at the time, close to being due. But that's that time in itself is a really special, precious time. That build up to birth, and that just added to the energy that we were feeling. And we had a really special time together, and we stayed there. And so I felt like I made peace with Tahiti. Obviously it was such a shock, and 1 minute you're living the dream, next thing you a few days later you kind of almost wake up from this trip of like what's just happened, and you're in a new reality, right? And so it was a pretty nuts journey in itself. And yeah, it was almost like being reborn, you know what I mean? I was like, everything was just fresh and renewed, and all those feelings that I already feel for my family were just heightened to the level. And that, yeah, we hung out. But to go back to the actual wave is something that I wanted to do since being healthy. Obviously I've now re-injured that side, but it's not the same part of the rib cage, and it's not actually connected, in my opinion. It was literally a board hit me really bloody hard, and so it's re-broken a rib, But so it's funny that this is all happening now, right? That it's the same side, and I can feel it, and I'm going back. It all feels quite surreal and overwhelming. That it's time's creeping up, and before you know it, I'll be jumping on a flight probably on Sunday if it's a go. I'm definitely nervous. I'd be nervous even if I didn't get smashed a couple of years ago. I was nervous 15 years ago when I first went there. I actually dislocated my shoulder there as well, which is something that I'm actually more nervous about than anything else, just because of the power of that wave and how technical. It's just very. It's quite a difficult. It's a fine line between wiping out and getting smashed there and making it, and it's very fine, and it's this much space. It feels like at times where things can go really wrong. 1 minute you've got the drop, next thing you know you're cartwheeling over the falls to, or you just stick that little tiny curve and you're in the, what would be a tow wave.
Right. Yeah.
It's incredible, but it's so daunting. And having had those past injuries there definitely adds another dimension to the fear factor. But I was nervous the first time I went there because it's Chopa at the end of the day. It is what it is. It's the heaviest sort of rideable slab probably in the world, weight ratio of what it does and how shallow it is. I think that, the potential to paddle, not well, you've seen it happen. I mean, even the other last swell, Emio, took it to another dimension. I know a lot of people compare things. All I know is he's on right now, and that was mind-blowingly incredible. And props to him and all the locals. They've. When I first went there, it was Ray Mana, it was Manoa, and all these peoples, and Led was towing in between us paddling, and it was Shane Dorian and things, and to see the young Groms, they're not Groms now, and they're just owning it and taking the paddle surfing to another level is incredible, and it's busy. So that factor too is very daunting. I don't really like crowds. It's a small space to sit, but I'm just gonna look. My whole philosophy around the world, or my what I'm putting out there is just, I'm just going to go and ride some waves there. You know, that in itself, it doesn't have to be bomb of this or bomb of the day, or I'm not trying to be man of the match. It's not the mission. You know, the mission's just to go there and make peace with the place, ride some waves, be successful, and get home in one piece. You know, like I'm not looking for the heaviest one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But if
no,
I'm
that makes a
feeling it,
lot of sense. Yeah.
then who knows? But
Well, you occupy quite a few unique spaces in the surfing world. One of the unique spaces, I think, and I'm pretty confident saying this, is that as far as slab experience goes, you're probably the surfer who has the most experience at both a Mullaghmore in Ireland and a Teahupu in Tahiti. There's a lot of like for like a civilian like myself, it seems like there's a lot of overlap in them both being slabby left-handers. But can you, based on your experience, can you describe kind of the key differences in those waves, like paddling big
so,
Mullaghmore versus big
well,
Teahupu?
well, look, I mean, I still feel like a complete novice at Chopu, to be honest, and like I've not put in any time there in the past. Whatever, when I was like 15 years ago, when I went a couple of swells.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, one of them ended with a dislocated shoulder. I had to come back to England, do a surgery, blah blah blah. So, and then I didn't go back there until a few years ago. Then I got smoked and smashed my ribs up and all that. Yeah, so
Right.
I wouldn't say that I have much experience out there, especially in this chapter of my life, the past 15 years. So I would go into that not knowing my lineups, talking to Matahi and the boys and trying to get some help. Yeah, I'm like novice,
Right.
which is why it's so scary. Um, you're using a board which is like, you know, a 6'6", a shorter board, you know, 6'4", maybe a 6'8". These are tiny boards. At Mullaghmore, I'm using my 9'3", 9'6", 9'0". These are big boards. So this is like a, you know, Maverick style first ledge surfboards. You know, like this is a different dimension. It's a different
Totally. Yeah.
style of surfing. Um, you know, the potential to paddle like the tallest crazy wave is not there in Mullaghmore realm. Yeah, these big toe days, there's usually wind involved, it's freezing, so there's a lot of factors that are against you. But that's the part that I'm most passionate about, and the thing that I'm as fired up as ever to push that kind of boundary at Mullaghmore. Um,
Mm.
at Chopu, it's a different deal. Like I said to you earlier, it's just going there and trying to just surf the wave, enjoy it, just
Mm.
enjoy the, you know, the wave and watch the boys doing their thing. Trying to avoid getting cleaned up by a 15-footer, and you know, and just embrace the journey of like, yeah, trying to catch a decent tube that I'm happy with. But it's a different kind of style. You know, the ledge at Chopu is it's more of a slabby takeoff. It's more intense on the takeoff at usually. At Mullaghmore on the ledge, you've usually got a chip shot that you're riding down, so it's an easier entry, but a harder make through the bowl a lot of the times because it's not perfect. And even the drop itself, you've got boils and steps that you might hit at Mullaghmore. It's obviously not as perfect as Chopu or Cloud Break or something. Um, it's a very different place and a very different feel. You know, you're in board shorts or a shorty at Chopu. You know, in Ireland you're in a 6 mil with the hoods and the gloves. You can't feel anything. You know, it's all challenging in different ways. But you know, I don't feel like I got to compete with people at Mullaghmore. I'm on my own little program, and that's like my, you know, spiritual happy place. That's my little Celtic zone that I'm sort of meant to be in. You know what I mean? That's my element. But uh, Tahiti's different. It's like a different. Yeah, it's sort of way outside my comfort in many dimensions. You know, like but that's, yeah. I've always done that. I've always travelled to these places. Right. I don't, not lucky enough to in England have a local wave that's mine and that's pipeline or wherever. You know, I have to travel and be at the bottom of the pecking order and pay my dues, and even then I don't get sets. You know what I mean? Unless I'm lucky enough that it pops up at the right time. And yeah, so it's a different thing altogether. The Chopu experience and these other places for me.
Well, I mean, humble as ever. I really, really wish you well on this upcoming trip to Tahiti and can't wait to see what comes out of it. And same with everyone listening. I mean, definitely check out Let Me Live, collaboration with YETI that's available on YouTube. It's a beautiful portrait with some insane surfing in it. Before you go, Tom, we did put out a feeler for some questions for you from at the Lineup Pod on Instagram. We got a bunch back, but we've whittled them down to 3. Oh yeah, people got questions for you. No, yeah. First one is from Trippy Travelman, who asks, if you could only surf in one country in the British Isles for life, England, Scotland, Ireland, or Wales, which would you choose?
You know what that's going to be. You know, I mean, Ireland, isn't it? It's the motherland for sure.
Next question is from Monty Lyle. We've had this come up for UK residents before, so hopefully the question makes sense. Jam or cream first is the question.
I go cream.
Okay. We got an answer from Ben Skinner, and it says, if you're Cornish, it's jam first always. So in England, we have our traditional cream tea English scone with jam and cream. Hold on. But it says, if you're from Cornwall, it's always jam first. So, all right. I like it. In Devon, they put cream first. That was the end of his answer.
Oh, no. Sorry, boys. Sorry to the Kerno boys for that one.
I told you, man, you occupy unique spaces in the surfing world. I get it.
Guy. You know what I mean?
Last question's from @SullyRay123, who says, I'm thinking of moving my life to Cornwall from the Gold Coast. Yes or no? Got a real estate advisement here with Tom Lowe.
It depends what you're looking for, isn't it? You know what I mean? If you're looking for the consistency of surfing, you might be a little bit shocked in the summer times. You know what I mean? You're going to have a long summer, but you're going to be less crowd. You're going to be meeting a great community, great people, and quite a life, a slower life, more trees and hills and beautiful coastline. And obviously the Gold Coast is pretty fast paced and wild, isn't it? So yeah, I don't know if that answers anything, but it's going to be cold. You get ready to get your wetty on. It's going to be cold.
Better football teams though in Cornwall, yeah.
I don't know about that.
No, you don't have a team.
Well, I'll biggest club close to home is Plymouth. Really, Plymouth Argyle. Most people support up country more, you know what I mean? Like my dad's a Liverpoolian, so I'm Liverpool, but like that kind of thing.
Makes sense. Man, Plymouth Argyle might be able to take the Matildas. You never know. Well, thanks to everyone who wrote in at the Lineup Pod. It's now down for the final segment. This is the lightning round, Tom. 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can. And I got your answers from last time we talked, so we can compare and contrast.
Oh, God. Okay.
If you could only have one board set up for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad, bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
I'll probably use a thruster just for the fact that, you can get barreled on it. You can go shred on it, and it kind of ticks. I guess it's the most used board in my quiver would be a thruster, to be honest. Even though I love riding all the other ones and I've got them all in the car every day, we're going to have to choose a thruster. Pretty boring, but go-to.
Consistent. Good choice. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Last book you read?
It's been a while, mate. I'm in the thick of it with a little one.
You said you were reading Moana to your daughter last time. I'm sure you read to them.
I read every night. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, what we got down there? I mean, we actually invent our own little book every night. What we're doing is we got the Unicorn Spot book for Tiger Lily, and I have to make up different voices and scenarios for all these different unicorns every night, and it changes every night. So I'm kind of writing my own book every night. That's what we're doing, and they've all got different characteristics, and we have to go down that road, and it keeps her stoked. And she's not wanted to be on that for the last probably 6 months every single night. And there's a few different pages on it with jungle, forests, and things. But I tell you, it's hard sometimes to get to freestyle something off. But it's good for you, I think. But
I think that's really good for you. Yeah.
That's what we're on at the moment.
And I hope you're recording that too, because then you turn into children's author, as a supplemental income.
No, we're not. I don't think I'm not as good as Tess. She's amazing at telling stories.
I like it.
It's working for Tiger, so that's all good.
Best surf film ever.
I do like Litmus. I do like
That's
it.
what
You know
you
what I
said
mean? The
last
island
time.
section in there.
Consistent.
It's a beautiful one. You know what I mean? It's an inspiring one. It stirred something in me.
What is one wave you never have to go back to?
Probably the right and that left down in WA, those tow waves, the right. I mean, I never got it doing its thing, and I'm not bothered that I didn't get it doing its thing. I was quite happy to tow into a couple of shoulders when it was cross on shore and go, yep, this is nuts. And, I'm not really big in the tow thing anyway.
Right.
But the left two just bobbing around out there, sharky, not inviting, not that bothered. I don't need to go back there. Thank you very much.
Consistent. If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life and you can dreamcast it, perfect conditions, just you and your friends, which wave would it be?
Well, that's a really difficult one because of the fact that if it was good, if I'm gonna, you think Mullaghmore, yeah, because that's the one where you're trying to get another dimension ride at and whatever, but you're not going to be surfing it in 10, 20 years, realistically, when it's doing its thing, because it's gnarly. And so you're going to probably, you'd probably just choose your local, wouldn't you? But with no people there. Porthmeor Beach.
Yeah. I like
where
it.
I was born, good as it gets with no one in. But no, I don't know. Lakey Peak's pretty fun.
You said Porto Escondido last time. It's a similar answer. You said beachy, wedgie, small surfboards, warm. Yeah.
But the problem is, you just kind of you can't deal with those beatings at Porto, can you? So now I'm thinking about forever, and we're thinking, okay, we're going to tone it down to fun factor. So maybe we're just going to go the Mia.
Next question. Best person to share a lineup with?
I love surfing with Cole Christensen. He's rad. He's always got great energy. And he gifts you waves. And you don't understand why. Sometimes you'll be on the third reef pipe, it's just the most perfect bomb. And you want this one? And I'm going, oh yeah, okay. You know what I mean? He's just surreal. He's a great human and friend, and he's also super gnarly when it's big, and a guy that does it for him, for the love, and he's not about ego. And I kind of really back his style of approach in general in life. So we'll go for Cole this time.
Great answer. Worst person to share a lineup with?
Oh, you did this last time.
I'll write your answer from last time.
Just do that then. I don't like doing that one. Oh god.
That's fair. You didn't answer last time. You just you kind of just smiled, was like, "Oh, they're right there, but I'm not going to say it." So that's fair.
It's too controversial. We don't want to go down that, or whatever. We don't want to go down that road.
Totally fair.
I'm not doing it.
Last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by...
Staying where I am. Being present where I am.
It's a good answer. Tom Lowe, congratulations. You're a super dad. You got a beautiful young family. Congratulations on your career. Good luck to you in Tahiti, and everyone check out Let Me Live, produced in collaboration with YETI. It's an awesome film, but really enjoyed talking to you again, man.
Thanks, mate.